In the land of Ooh, under a candy-colored sky, there lived a magical dog named Jake. Jake was no ordinary dog. He had the wondrous ability to stretch and shapeshift his body into almost anything. By day, he could transform into a towering giant to help pluck ripe apples from the tallest tree, and by night, he might curl himself up into a cozy blanket fort for his friends. Ever cheerful and laid back, with a round belly and a golden fur that caught the sunlight, Jake's presence radiated warmth. He was a trusted friend, a loyal brother, and a gentle soul in a world of adventure. Everyone who knew him could feel the comfort and magic he carried, as natural as the soft glow of fireflies at dusk. Jake's journey began in a most unusual way, as many things do in the whimsical land of Ooh. He was born not in a typical litter of puppies, but through a bit of mystery and magic. Long ago, Jake's father, Joshua the dog, and mother Margaret were brave adventurers themselves. One fateful day, while investigating a strange, shape-shifting creature in the forest, Joshua was bitten by that magical being. To the astonishment of Joshua and Margaret, a tiny pup, baby Jake, emerged from the magical bite. Instead of being frightened by Jake's mysterious origins, Joshua and Margaret embraced the little pup as their son. They raised Jake alongside their other young son, Jermaine, in a loving home filled with courage and care. From the very start, Jake was extraordinary, gifted with the power to stretch and grow, a gift from the magic that sparked his birth. When Jake was still a small pup, eyes wide with curiosity, fate brought another child into his life. A human baby found bundled in the woods. Joshua and Margaret discovered this abandoned infant during one of their outings, a little boy with a toothy smile and an adventurous spark in his eyes. They named him Finn and brought him home to be raised as part of the family. From the moment Jake gently crawled up to sniff baby Finn's face, an unbreakable brotherly bond was formed. Jake became an older brother to Finn, curling around the baby to keep him warm at night and entertaining him with his goofy shape-shifting. As the two grew, their laughter filled the house. Finn's giggles whenever Jake morphed into a silly shape, and Jake's chuckles whenever baby Finn tried to gnaw on his ear or follow his stretching tail. Under the watchful eyes of Joshua and Margaret, Jermaine, Jake, and little Finn became a family in every sense of the word. Growing up, Jake's home life was a blend of coziness and adventure. In the evenings, the family would gather around the fireplace in their snug old house. The air would smell of hot cocoa, and the wooden walls would creak softly as the night settled in. Joshua, with his strong yet kind voice, would regale the boys with tales of his and Margaret's daring quests across Ooh. Young Finn would sit wide-eyed, and Jake's tail would thump with excitement at each heroic tale. Sometimes Joshua's stories carried important lessons about bravery and kindness, teaching the brothers to stand up for what's right. Margaret, ever gentle, would wrap a blanket around Finn and Jake as they listened, occasionally fussing over them, reminding Jake not to stretch too close to the fire or tucking Finn closer by her side. These peaceful moments, with Jermaine quietly polishing one of Joshua's old swords and Jake playfully stretching his arm to sneak one more cookie from the kitchen, made Jake feel safe and loved. Jake's parents taught him many things. Joshua encouraged him to be tough and resourceful, while Margaret nurtured his kind heart. With Jermaine, the more serious brother, Jake learned about responsibility. Jermaine often helped Joshua organize ancient scrolls and magical artifacts their parents collected. Jake, on the other hand, was more carefree, often using his stretch powers to lift furniture effortlessly or prank his brothers by morphing into funny shapes. Even as a pup, Jake loved making others smile, and whenever Jermaine got frustrated with Jake's antics, little Jake would just grin and stretch himself into a big squishy pillow, prompting Jermaine and Finn to burst into laughter and forget their worries. As time flowed gently on, the family of 5 enjoyed many happy days. But life in Ooh is ever changing. and even the warmest of times eventually make way for new chapters. As Jake approached adulthood, at least in dog years, though magical pups like him don't age quite the same way, Joshua and Margaret grew older too. Eventually, they passed away, their adventures in Ooh coming to a peaceful end. It was a sad time. Jake's heart ached, and he comforted Finn, who cried in his arms. Jermaine, being the responsible one, stayed behind at their parents' house to keep their father's treasures safe and honor their memory. Jake, meanwhile, knew that Joshua and Margaret had always wanted them to live bravely and kindly. So, with a hopeful heart, he and Finn decided to carry those lessons into the world, just as their parents would have wished. Not long after, Jake and Finn packed up their essential belongings, including Joshua's old viola that Jake loved to play, and a few keepsakes from Margaret, and said goodbye to the old family home. The two brothers, one a stretchy magical dog and the other a bold human boy, set out to find a new home that would be theirs alone. They soon found the perfect spot, a giant tree in the Candy Kingdom that had grown into a cozy, hollowed-out treehouse. With Jermaine's blessing and a bittersweet farewell, Finn and Jake moved into this tree fort. They made it snug and welcoming. Hanging up family pictures, Jake placed a photo of Joshua, Margaret, and all three brothers on a shelf, laying out Jake's favorite blankets and arranging Finn's few toys and swords. In this treehouse, high above the ground and nestled among swaying green leaves, Finn and Jake began a new life together. It was quieter without Jermaine's steady presence, but also exciting. A chance to become the heroes they'd heard about in their father's bedtime stories. From their new home, the tree fort, Jake and Finn embraced a life of freedom and adventure. In those early days on their own, Jake was a bit of a mischief maker. With no parents around to gently scold him, he sometimes used his shape-shifting abilities for playful shenanigans. It's said that for a short while, Jake even tried living as a bit of a trickster, a successful criminal, as some would later say with a chuckle, using his powers to sneak around for treasure or snacks that didn't belong to him. He wasn't bad-hearted, just testing the limits of his freedom like a teenager pushing curfew. Finn, still a kid, found it thrilling to tag along on these little capers, like snatching a pie cooling on a window or playfully outsmarting a grouchy ogre hoarding gold. But Jake's good nature always shone through. If ever a deed went too far and someone innocent might have gotten hurt, Jake's conscience tugged at him. He remembered Joshua's lessons of heroism and Margaret's kind guidance. Before long, Jake realized that helping others felt far better than taking things for himself. One sunny morning, as he stretched atop the treehouse roof to watch the sunrise, Jake thought about what he truly wanted. The answer was clear and simple. He wanted to have fun, yes, but also to do good in the world and protect those he loved. With Finn at his side, Jake decided to leave any sneaky schemes behind and devote himself fully to the life of an adventurer. After all, what could be more fulfilling than roaming the wide world, saving princesses or finding lost treasures, and then coming home to a warm meal and a song? So Jake hung up his criminal cap with a laugh and put on the mantle of a hero, just as his parents had been. Thus began Jake's days as a true adventurer, arm in arm with Finn. They were two brothers against the world, ready to face whatever wonders and challenges Ooh would bring. Jake could not have known it then, but this choice, to cherish goodness, friendship, and family over selfish tricks, would shape him into the beloved hero he'd soon become. With a happy heart, Jake looked out from the tree fort at the vast Candy Kingdom below and the endless horizon beyond, feeling the gentle morning breeze. A new chapter was unfolding, and Jake the dog was ready for it, with a smile on his face and Finn's hand in his paw. Settled in their treehouse home, Finn and Jake quickly became known as two of the greatest adventurers in the land. Day after day, they roamed far and wide across the land of Oo, seeking out those in need and fighting the occasional monster that crossed their path. Each morning often began with Jake whipping up a batch of his famous bacon pancakes in their little kitchen, humming a goofy tune as Finn strapped on his backpack and sword. With breakfast warming their bellies and the sun shining through the treehouse windows, the duo would set out, eager for whatever adventures awaited. Their escapades were as varied and colorful as Oo itself. One day, they might be delving into a hidden dungeon filled with traps and treasure. The next, they could be scaling the fiery mountains of the Fire Kingdom to help a friend. Through it all, Jake was Finn's steady companion and protector. When Finn leapt fearlessly into battle against evil monsters or the mischief of the Ice King, Jake was right there with him, stretching out his body to shield Finn from harm or to reach a far ledge and pull him to safety. With a boisterous algebraic or a gentle chuckle, Jake's presence assured Finn that everything would be all right. His flexible form became anything they needed, a glowing lantern on a dark night, a raft to sail down a chocolate river, or even a cozy tent when they camped under the stars. Many evenings, after a successful quest, the two would sit by a campfire in the woods. Finn might be tending a gentle flame, while Jake strummed soft melodies on his viola, the notes floating into the night air like fireflies. These were moments of simple joy after the excitement, where Jake's music and easy laughter made even the wildest day feel calm and safe at its end. Jake's light-hearted spirit made every adventure fun. He loved cracking jokes mid-quest to make Finn laugh, even when they were in a tight spot. If they stumbled into a gloomy cave or a spooky forest, Jake would often break the tension by making a silly face, perhaps stretching his snout into a comical shape or elongating his body into a wiggling dance, until Finn giggled and any fear melted away. Jake had a knack for finding the bright side of any situation. When Finn felt discouraged because a plan failed or a villain momentarily got the upper hand, Jake would pat him on the back or playfully ruffle Finn's hair with an oversized paw and say something optimistic like, "We'll get him next time, don't you worry, dude." His voice was always calm and reassuring, instantly easing Finn's worries. Together, they foiled many a foe. In the Candy Kingdom, Princess Bubblegum often called on Finn and Jake for help when the quirky inhabitants were in danger. On more than one occasion, the Ice King, a lonely old wizard with a crown of ice, would swoop down and scoop the princess or other kind folk into his arms, intent on a misguided plan. But before fear could spread too far, Finn and Jake would arrive. Jake might stretch into a huge bridge so Finn could sprint across a chasm to reach the Ice King's icy lair. Other times, Jake would shapeshift into a massive shield to block the Ice King's freezing spells, protecting Finn as he freed the captive. In one particularly memorable rescue, Jake inflated himself like a giant balloon, buoying Finn high into the air so the young hero could pull Princess Bubblegum from the Ice King's clutches mid-flight. Safely back on the ground, the princess would thank them with a gracious smile and perhaps a plate of cookies from the Candy Kingdom kitchens. Finn would bounce with excitement at having saved the day, and Jake would grin widely, happy to see his brother happy and safe. It wasn't only grand adventures and battles that filled their days. Jake and Finn cherished their quiet times at home too. In the afternoons, if no urgent quest called, you might find Jake lounging on the treehouse couch, stretching his legs out in impossible directions while reading a comic book, as Finn practiced sword swings in the yard below. Their cozy home was bright with odd mementos from past adventures, a crystal here, a golden beetle there, each with its own little story that Jake would happily recount to visitors. Often their friend BMO, a small living video game console who shared their home, would join Jake in imaginative play. BMO might pretend to be a cowboy or a space hero, and Jake, ever the good sport, would shapeshift into whatever prop was needed. A trusty steed, a rocket ship, filling the treehouse with laughter. To Jake, these simple games were just as precious as epic quests. They kept the childlike wonder alive in their lives, reminding everyone that adventure could be found in even the smallest moments. Through all these experiences, Jake and Finn's brotherly bond only grew stronger. They learned to communicate almost without words. A quick glance or a nod was enough to hatch a plan between them. Finn's bold determination paired perfectly with Jake's calm wisdom. If Finn charged ahead without thinking, as he sometimes did in his youth, Jake would be the one to gently call out, "Hey man, maybe slow down a sec," likely saving them from a trap. Conversely, if Jake ever felt unmotivated or lazy when a friend truly needed help, Finn's earnest heart would inspire him to get up and do the right thing. In this way, they balanced each other, each making the other a better hero and a better person. Jake's maturity, being older and having seen a bit more of life, was a guiding light for Finn. But Jake also learned from Finn. He admired Finn's unbreakable courage and kindness, which often rekindled Jake's own sense of purpose whenever it dimmed. One gentle night after a long journey, Finn admitted to Jake that he sometimes felt unsure of himself, worried he might fail in protecting those he loved. Jake responded by wrapping Finn in a warm, stretchy hug, encircling him like a living blanket. In a soft voice, Jake told him, "You've got a heart of gold, Finn. That's what makes you a hero. And you're never alone. I'm with you, always." Finn smiled, nestling against his brother's soft fur as they looked up at the twinkling stars through the treehouse window. Moments like this glowed in Jake's memory. Quiet talks, mutual support, and the comforting knowledge that they would always be there for one another. As their reputation grew, Finn and Jake encountered friends who became like family and faced enemies who tested their skills. But no matter the challenge, from solving the riddles of a labyrinthine maze to calming a giant snarling beast, they approached it together. And inevitably, hand in paw, they emerged victorious, or at the very least wiser and closer than before. These golden years of adventure were filled with laughter, bravery, and endless discovery. Through trolls and witches, enchanted forests and underwater realms, the story of Finn and Jake spread across Ooh, a story of true friendship and heroic hearts. By this time, Jake had truly come into his own as a hero. The once mischievous pup had grown into a dependable champion, though he never lost his playful spark. At night, as Jake rested his head on his pillow, sometimes stretching his body to fill an entire room just for fun before shrinking back down, he would often reflect on the day's events. He felt proud of the good they had done and grateful for the brother at his side. If he closed his eyes and listened carefully, he could almost hear his father Joshua's voice telling an old adventure tale by the fireplace, and his mother Margaret humming softly. In those quiet reflections, Jake knew he was living the life his parents had imagined for him, one of purpose, love, and a dash of silliness for good measure. Little did Finn and Jake know, even greater challenges and changes lay ahead. But for now, in the gentle stillness of another night in Ooh, they were content. In their tree fort, lit by the soft glow of a lightning bug in a jar, Finn curled up in his sleeping bag and Jake draped an arm over him protectively. They drifted into sleep with easy smiles, ready for tomorrow's adventures. Whatever came next, they would face it together, as brothers, as friends, as the eternal heroes of the land. During these adventurous years, Jake's heart found a new kind of joy, the joy of romance. Amid their heroics, Jake fell in love with a radiant being named Lady Rainicorn. Lady Rainicorn was a graceful, elongated creature, her body shimmering with all the colors of the rainbow. She could fly on pure light, and wherever she went, A trail of bright color followed like the path of a sunbeam. Jake first met Lady Rainicorn during an afternoon at the Candy Kingdom's meadow. Princess Bubblegum had a companion, Lady, who often helped around the kingdom. When Jake saw Lady Rainicorn swirling playfully among the flower fields, her laughter ringing like bells, he felt his heart flutter in a way he'd never known. Lady found Jake equally charming, his goofy grin, and the way he innocently offered her a homemade sandwich as a greeting made her giggle. It wasn't long before the two became inseparable companions, gliding through the skies of Ooh on afternoon picnics or napping under candy apple trees side by side. Communication between them was a bit tricky at first. Lady Rainicorn spoke in the lilting language of Rainicorns, which sounded like Korean to human ears. Jake, determined to understand every word of the one who had stolen his heart, got his hands on a magical translator device. With it, he could comprehend Lady's sweet, musical voice. She thanked him for the sandwich and told him he was funny and kind, which made Jake blush under his yellow fur. As days passed, Jake even began picking up phrases of her language, learning to speak from the heart, if not in perfect words. Lady appreciated Jake's efforts, and soon they developed their own understanding beyond language. A tilt of her unicorn-like horn and a sparkle in her big friendly eyes told Jake she was happy, and Jake's warm hugs and wagging tail spoke louder than any words. Their love story was gentle and filled with whimsy. Often, Jake and Lady Rainicorn would spend quiet mornings floating among the clouds. Jake would stretch out like a comfortable flying carpet that Lady could relax on, and together they'd drift over the landscapes of Ooh. From high above, they'd watch the candy people starting their day or see the shimmering surface of Lake Butterscotch reflecting the sky. Sometimes they played music together, Jake with his viola and Lady humming along in her language. Even though Jake couldn't sing the Rainicorn words, he would softly howl a harmony, making Lady smile. In the golden light of late afternoon, they might share a bowl of colorful popcorn, Lady's favorite treat, on the grass, chatting in a mix of English and Rainicorn phrases that only they fully understood. Jake adored how kind and brave Lady was. Once, she even joined him and Finn on a rescue mission, using her rainbow powers to save them from a dangerous pit. And Lady admired Jake's loyalty and humor. He always knew how to make her day brighter, whether by bringing her a bouquet of wildflowers, picked with Finn's help, or by literally tying himself into a balloon animal shape to make her laugh after a tough day. Of course, balancing time between his best friend and his beloved was a new challenge for Jake. At first, he worried that Finn might feel lonely or left out when Jake spent time with Lady Rainicorn. In one humorous attempt to bring his two favorite people together, Jake arranged a get-together so the three of them could hang out. Finn and Lady Rainicorn ended up getting along splendidly, playing silly games and talking about their adventures. But Jake, ironically, grew a little jealous when he saw them bonding so well. He realized he was afraid of either relationship changing. This confusion led to a comical misunderstanding, where Jake momentarily tried to keep Finn and Lady's attention on himself, stretching in between them, or interrupting their jokes. Eventually, Jake came to his senses and felt ashamed for doubting his loved ones. Lady gently nuzzled him, and Finn gave him a reassuring pat. They both understood Jake's feelings. Through this, Jake learned that love isn't a limited resource. Caring for Lady didn't mean he cared any less for Finn, and vice versa. His heart had room for all of his loved ones, and in fact, seeing Finn and Lady become friends brought him even more happiness. After that, the trio often spent time together comfortably. Sometimes Finn and Jake would go on adventures, while Lady visited her own friends. And other times, Lady and Jake would invite Finn to ride along on a breezy sky tour, Finn laughing in delight as they whooshed through cotton candy clouds. As seasons passed softly, Jake and Lady Rainicorn's bond deepened. They supported each other through life's ups and downs. When Jake returned from particularly hard quests, a little bruised or tired, Lady was there to wrap him in a loving embrace, her rainbow aura soothing him as he rested. When Lady faced worries, or when her parents, who lived in the crystal dimension, visited and things got hectic, Jake stayed by her side, respectful and caring, sometimes diffusing tension with a well-timed joke. To Jake, Lady was a source of comfort and hope. Her mere presence reminded him of the beauty in the world. He often thought back to nights in the treehouse. Finn would be sleeping soundly, and Jake would step outside onto the balcony where Lady Rainicorn hovered in the night air waiting for him. They would share a quiet moment under the stars, Jake reaching up to hold her paw as she floated, both of them enjoying the tranquil sound of distant crickets and the glow of the moon. In those moments, Jake felt completely at peace and deeply loved. Their relationship was not marked by grand drama, but by steady, unwavering devotion. In the course of their adventures, Jake had come to realize that family was what you made of it. Finn was his family by bond, and Lady was now family by love. And soon, this family was destined to grow even more. One bright spring day, Lady Rainicorn revealed to Jake that she was going to have pups. They were expecting babies. Jake's eyes went wide with awe and excitement. He gently placed his paw on Lady's rainbow-striped side, imagining he could feel the tiny new lives inside. Overcome with joy, he wept happy tears and hugged Lady close, taking care not to squeeze too hard in his enthusiasm. Finn, upon hearing the news, lifted Jake into the air in celebration, and BMO did a little dance of glee around them. The treehouse was abuzz with anticipation for the new arrivals. As Lady's pregnancy progressed, Jake did everything he could to keep her comfortable and happy. He would bring her tasty treats, fresh apples and cucumber sandwiches, and sing soothing tunes to her when she felt restless. Although Lady Rainicorn was strong and capable, Jake tended to fuss over her with sweet concern, fluffing her pillows and ensuring she had shade on hot days. He was going to be a father, and the very thought filled him with a mix of wonder and nervousness. Each evening, before Lady went home to the Candy Kingdom, where she preferred to stay during her pregnancy under Princess Bubblegum's care, Jake would walk with her to the edge of the meadow, the sky painted in pink and orange hues of sunset. They would nuzzle faces, and Lady would often reassure Jake in her melodic Rainicorn language that he would be a great dad. Jake's heart swelled with hope and a touch of anxiety. He wanted so badly to do everything right for their children. With Finn and their friends cheering them on, Jake and Lady prepared for this beautiful change. The love that linked them was now creating new life, and it felt to Jake like another grand adventure was about to begin, perhaps the greatest one yet, an adventure of parenthood. With hands and paws held and hearts intertwined, Jake and Lady Rainicorn looked toward the future with excitement, ready to welcome their pups into the wonderful, magical world of Ooh. Even as Jake's life filled with love and friendship, great challenges arose to test his spirit. Being a hero in Ooh meant facing dangers that sometimes felt overwhelming. One of the first truly dire threats Finn and Jake encountered was an ancient evil known as the Lich, a skeletal being of pure darkness who sought to end all life. In a fateful encounter beneath the Candy Kingdom, the Lich nearly defeated the two heroes. Jake fought bravely, stretching himself into a protective bubble around Finn, and even using his body as a makeshift gauntlet on Finn's arm to strike the Lich. But the Lich was powerful. With a terrible sweep of magic, he hurled Jake aside and injured him gravely, leaving Jake unconscious and Finn momentarily alone. In that heart-stopping moment, Finn feared he had lost his brother forever. Gathering his courage, Finn managed to repel the Lich, using the power of a warm sweater imbued with Princess Bubblegum's loving aura. a simple, heartfelt weapon against an unimaginable evil. In the aftermath, Finn cradled Jake as tears slipped down his cheeks, begging his friend to wake up. Slowly, Jake did awaken, groggy and sore, but alive. As Jake opened his eyes, he saw Finn's relieved smile and felt the young hero's arms wrap around him in the tightest hug. Jake gently patted Finn's back, whispering, "I'm okay, buddy. I'm not going anywhere." This brush with death was a sobering lesson. Jake realized how much Finn needed him, and Finn realized how fragile even a magical dog could be. They emerged from the encounter closer than ever, having stared down darkness and held onto each other all the tighter for it. Another time, the two friends faced a different kind of trial, one not of evil, but of fate and acceptance. Jake began having a recurring dream of a giant cosmic being, a dream that felt like a prophecy. In the dream, Jake saw himself in the stars, guided by the cosmic owl, a mysterious omen of destiny in Ooh. And he heard a phrase echoing, "This is the croak." Jake interpreted this as a premonition of his own death, since in the lore of Ooh, dreaming of the cosmic owl often foretells important events. Instead of fear, Jake felt a strange peace about it. He shared the dream with Finn, explaining with a calm smile that he thought he was destined to embark on his ultimate adventure among the stars, perhaps meaning he might die heroically. Finn was alarmed and upset by Jake's casual acceptance of death. The thought of losing Jake was unbearable to him, but Jake, in his mellow wisdom, tried to reassure Finn that death was a natural part of life's journey and that he wasn't afraid. In an attempt to understand the dream's meaning, the brothers built a makeshift rocket out of an old barn with the help of their enthusiastic friend Banana Man. Jake felt compelled to reenact the dream, thinking if he fulfilled the vision, it might bring clarity or closure. As the rocket hurled toward the sky with Finn and Jake aboard, an accident caused it to come apart mid-air. For a terrifying moment, it seemed the dream was coming true. Jake was floating among the stars, the cosmic owl watching, and Finn was screaming his name in panic. But fate had a twist in store. Thanks to last-minute help from their friends, both Finn and Jake survived the crash with only minor bumps. Jake's predicted croak did not come to pass that day. Instead, he and Finn landed safely back in Ooh's green fields, hearts pounding with relief. Sitting under the night sky afterward, Jake realized something profound. Destiny might be powerful, but the love and determination he and Finn shared could overcome even fate. Finn, tears of joy in his eyes, told Jake how glad he was that Jake was still by his side. Jake held Finn close, his own eyes misty, and promised he wasn't in a hurry to leave this world after all. The experience taught Jake to cherish life even more deeply. He had faced the idea of his end and found that what truly mattered was the here and now. The adventures still to be had and the family he still had to live for. Not all trials were so cosmic. Some were surprisingly everyday but carried their own lessons. In one adventure, Jake and Finn entered a magical labyrinth to retrieve a wish-granting gem at the center. The maze tested Jake's powers like never before, forcing him to stretch farther and thinner through narrow corridors. Determined to get the prize for Finn's sake, Finn had hoped to use the wish for a noble cause. Jake pushed his stretching ability to its absolute limit. He elongated so much to bridge a massive gap that his body grew weak and translucent, straining like a rubber band about to snap. Finn, seeing Jake in pain, begged him to stop. No wish was worth losing his brother. At Finn's insistence, they forfeited the wish, and Jake slowly shrank back, collapsing into Finn's arms from exhaustion. Panting and weak, Jake apologized for not securing the gem, but Finn was just immensely relieved that Jake was okay. Through this, Jake learned that even he had limits, and that his well-being meant far more to his loved ones than any magical wish or treasure. It was a humbling reminder that taking care of himself was also a part of being a hero. Jake also tasted defeat and helplessness on rare occasions, which deepened his empathy for others. Once, a witch's curse temporarily robbed Jake of his shape-shifting abilities, leaving him an average and somewhat chubby dog with no extraordinary powers. At first, Jake was distressed. His powers were such a part of him that without them he felt lost. He and Finn tried numerous antics to get the powers back, and along the way, Jake experienced what it was like to be vulnerable. He couldn't easily leap into danger or transform to solve problems. He had to rely on Finn and his own wits. By the time they lifted the curse, and Jake returned gratefully to his stretchy self, Jake had gained a new appreciation. He saw that true strength came from spirit and heart, not just magic. This empathy later made him even more compassionate toward regular folks with no powers, strengthening his resolve to protect them. Each challenge Jake faced, whether a world-shaking battle or a personal struggle with his own limitations, forged him into a wiser, more resilient soul. He learned to balance courage with caution and confidence with humility. Through it all, Jake never lost the gentle optimism at his core. If anything, adversity made his warm outlook shine brighter. After the scariest ordeals, Jake would be the one to lighten the mood for everyone, perhaps by cooking a comforting meal or telling a funny story of a past mishap, easing the lingering tension. He often encouraged Finn and their friends to reflect on what they'd learned, just as he quietly did himself. In the quiet moments after chaos, Jake might sit outside the treehouse, gaze at the twinkling stars, including the one that he thought might have been his fate, and strum a soft tune on his viola. He felt grateful to be alive, to have love in his life, and to still have more adventures ahead. Little did Jake know, one of the most life-changing adventures was soon to arrive, not in the form of a threat, but as 5 tiny new blessings that would forever change his world. Before long, the day arrived that Jake and Lady Rainicorn's pups were born, a day of joy and wonder that Jake would never forget. Lady Rainicorn gave birth to 5 baby Rainicorn puppies, each a unique mix of their parents in appearance and ability. Jake could hardly contain his excitement as he gathered around Lady, seeing their tiny offspring for the first time. There was Charlie, a mellow little pup with soft yellow fur and a single pale rainbow stripe down her back, cooing calmly. Viola, slender and light orange with a unicorn-like horn, who wriggled energetically. TV, short for TV, a round, pudgy pup with Jake's golden color and a love for snuggling. Kim Kil Wan, a pup with a serious, thoughtful expression despite his youth, bearing a grayish coat and a small horn. And Jake Jr., a little girl pup who astonishingly resembled Jake in shape, but with a face that had the quirky, changing features of a shapeshifter, a trait passed from Jake's unusual lineage. Jake's heart swelled seeing each of them. He gently scooped up the tiny pups one by one, nuzzling them with his nose and letting them hear his voice. "Hello there, little ones," he whispered, tears of happiness in his eyes. Each pup responded with a small sound or a tiny stretch of their own bodies, and Jake laughed softly, amazed at how alive and precious they were. Becoming a father was a brand new adventure for Jake. And like any adventure, it came with challenges and discoveries. In the first days, Jake was determined to be the best dad ever. He spent every waking moment tending to the babies, giving Lady Rainicorn time to rest and recover. With Finn's help, and under Lady's amused supervision, Jake set up a safe nursery in the treehouse for the pups. He used his stretching powers to baby-proof everything, covering sharp corners with his pliable body, weaving hammocks from soft blankets, and even turning himself into a living playpen by arching his body around them in a protective circle. The sight was adorable and a bit funny. 5 colorful little pups crawling over their dad's stretchy back and tummy as if he were a playground. Jake would stretch an arm gently to scoop up any adventurous pup that wandered too far, bringing them back into the cozy circle. Despite his enthusiasm, Jake quickly learned that taking care of 5 magical babies was hard work. The pups had boundless energy and, being part rainicorn, they grew surprisingly fast. What started as tiny infants soon became rambunctious toddlers in what felt like a blink. One moment Jake would be lulling a pup to sleep with a lullaby hummed in his deep, soothing voice, and the next moment, another pup would be chewing on BMO circuitry or floating up to the ceiling. There were sleepless nights when multiple pups cried at once or zoomed around with newfound flying abilities, and poor Jake found himself stretched, literally and figuratively, in 5 directions at once trying to keep up. He tried to do it all, feeding them, entertaining them, changing weird magical diapers conjured by Princess Bubblegum, since rainicorn pups had peculiar needs, and ensuring each pup felt loved. Finn helped when he could, rocking the babies or making funny faces to calm them. But during those early days, Jake took on a lot, wanting Lady to rest. One afternoon, as Lady napped and the pups began to nap as well, Jake collapsed onto the floor in exhaustion, his body sprawled out like a deflated balloon. He hadn't gone on a single traditional adventure in days, yet he felt more tired than after battling a dragon. "This is tougher than fighting goblins," he muttered to BMO with a weary grin. BMO, filming the pups with delight, cheerfully agreed. Jake realized he needed to allow himself help and breaks. Lady Rainicorn, once recovered, reassured him of this as well. She would nuzzle him and encourage him to take a little time to eat or sleep while she watched the pups. Through caring for his children, Jake was learning patience, responsibility, and humility in entirely new ways. A fearless hero he might be, but now he was also a dad who had to consider the safety and happiness of his little ones at every moment. It gave Jake a newfound respect for his own parents, Joshua and Margaret. He remembered how they had raised not only him and Germaine, but also taken in baby Finn. In quiet moments, rocking one of the pups in his arms, Jake would softly thank his late parents for the love they'd given. He understood now, more than ever, what a gift that was. As the rainicorn puppies grew at an accelerated pace, rainicorn heritage tends to make children grow up quickly, Jake had to come to terms with letting them go on their own adventures. Within a relatively short span of time, the toddlers became young adults, an eye blink in rainicorn terms. It felt far too soon for Jake. Part of him still wanted to cradle them like tiny babies forever. But each pup had a destiny and personality all their own. Jake and Lady Rainicorn did their best to teach them right from wrong, to be kind and true, and to use their unique abilities wisely. And the lessons Jake had learned in his own life, about honesty, bravery, and love, he gently passed on to his children. The 5 pups grew into remarkable individuals. Kim Kil-wan became shrewd and resourceful, surprisingly mature. As a young adult, he donned a business suit and set out to make his mark. Though he loved his carefree dad, he sometimes worried Jake wasn't serious enough. In time, father and son would come to understand one another better, like the day Jake gifted Kim an old ocarina, a simple musical instrument from his treasure pile, symbolizing that it's okay to relax and find joy. Kim Kil-wan, touched by the gesture, realized Jake expressed care in his own way. They remained close, and Kim would often visit with his own daughter, Jake's granddaughter, Bronwyn, giving Jake a chance to be a proud grandfather. Jake Jr. grew up bold and adventurous, with a shape-shifting talent even more unpredictable than her father's. She had a quirky, mischievous streak and fearlessly pursued her interests, at one point even joining a group of rough-and-tumble misfits for excitement. Jake admired her independence. Though Jake Jr. tended to do things her own way, she dearly loved her parents, and Jake was always ready to support her if she needed help. He often marveled at how much she reminded him of himself as a young pup, confident and free-spirited. Charlie, in contrast, developed a tranquil and spiritual demeanor. She took interest in the mystical side of her rainicorn heritage, practicing meditation and exploring magical dimensions. Charlie's calm wisdom at a young age often surprised Jake. He once found her floating cross-legged in mid-air, humming peacefully, a sight that filled him with awe. Charlie would occasionally pop by the treehouse, only to disappear on another walkabout, and Jake learned to accept that her journey was a unique one. He loved her gentle nature and knew she carried his laid-back vibes into a more mystical direction. Viola showed a flair for creativity. As she matured, she gravitated towards the arts, especially theater and music. She had a dramatic streak and loved putting on plays for her family. Jake remembered how as a tiny pup, Viola would babble along when he played viola, her namesake instrument. Now she could craft entire songs and stories of her own. Jake and Lady made sure to attend every show Viola put on, cheering the loudest in the audience. Seeing her shine on stage made Jake's heart glow with pride. TV, the easygoing, rotund sibling, took a more unhurried path in life. He was fond of comfort and simple pleasures, very much like Jake in his love for relaxing and snacking. For a while, TV stayed at home well into his adulthood, enjoying living with Lady's parents and watching his favorite shows, hence his nickname. Jake had many heart-to-heart talks with TV, encouraging him to discover his passion. Eventually, TV opened a video rental shop in a humble and happy business that let him chat with all sorts of folks. Jake would drop by the shop to bring TV lunch and see him content and smiling, which reassured Jake that this son of his had indeed found what made him happy. As a father, Jake realized that each child was different, and his love for them took on many forms. He learned to be flexible, not just in body, but in expectations. He supported their choices, even when they differed from what he might have imagined. And whenever any of his children needed advice or comfort after a rough day, Jake was there with open arms, sometimes literally stretching them across if needed, to reach a distant son or daughter. Though the pups grew up and many moved to their own corners of the world, Jake stayed a devoted father. Family dinners, chaotic and laughter-filled, were held whenever everyone managed to gather, often at the Candy Kingdom or the old house with Germaine. Jake would cook up something yummy. Rainicorn bacon was off the menu, of course, given Lady and the kids' half-rainicorn nature, and the family would share stories. One of Jake's favorite memories was a warm evening where nearly all of his children, and even little Bronwyn, his granddaughter, gathered at the treehouse. As the sun set in a sherbet-orange sky, the pups, now adults but forever pups to Jake, sat around a bonfire with Finn, Lady, and Jake. They roasted cosmic marshmallows and told tales. Kim Kil-wan spoke of a new project in the Candy Kingdom city. Jake Jr. recounted a funny misadventure with some former thieving pals. Charlie described a beautiful otherworldly realm she'd visited. Viola performed a short, whimsical poem she'd written, and TV recommended his favorite sandwich recipe to everyone. Jake listened with a big smile, his arm around Lady Rainicorn and Finn leaning against his shoulder. In that moment, Jake felt an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. All the adventures, all the struggles and growth had led to this, a loving family sharing simple, happy moments. His pups were forging their own paths, yet the bond they all shared was unbreakable. Through becoming a father, Jake matured in ways he never imagined. He understood deeper than ever what it meant to care for someone more than yourself. He also realized that time moves on, children grow up, life changes, and that change can be beautiful, not something to fear. If anything, watching his children set out on their own adventures gave Jake hope for the future of It was as if a part of him now lived in each of them, continuing the story in countless new directions. and he was content with that. Jake would always be ready to help them if needed, but he also took comfort in knowing they were capable and kind-hearted on their own. With his children grown and thriving, Jake's day-to-day life gently shifted back to more time with Finn and Lady and quiet personal adventures. But the lessons of fatherhood stayed with him, enriching his already warm heart with even more empathy and wisdom. Jake the dog, hero, friend, and now seasoned father, had truly come full circle from the carefree puppy he once was. And as ever, he faced the days ahead with a smile, surrounded by love in many forms. With his children grown and thriving, and Finn now a strong young man forging his own legendary path, Jake found himself reflecting on the roots of his life. He thought often of Jermaine, his brother who had stayed behind at their childhood home. Jake realized he missed Jermaine and the shared memories of their youth. So, one peaceful day, Jake and Finn journeyed back to the old house where he and his brothers grew up. The house stood quiet at the edge of a forest, filled with the remnants of Joshua and Margaret's adventurous life. Old relics, enchanted artifacts, and paintings on the walls. Jermaine was there, diligently fulfilling a promise he made to their parents, protecting the house and its magical contents from harm. Each night, stray demons and restless spirits, attracted by the powerful objects stored there, tried to break in, and Jermaine fought them off alone. When Jake arrived, his brother greeted him warmly, but with a hint of exhaustion in his eyes. That night, Jake insisted on helping Jermaine deal with the invading creatures. Side by side, the two dog brothers fended off a host of mischief-making spirits. Jake, stretching to corral several shadowy imps at once, while Jermaine used protective spells and a trusty firebrand to seal them away. Finn helped too, astonished at how much Jermaine had been handling on his own all these years. After the chaos settled and the night grew calm, the three shared a quiet moment in the old living room. The walls were still adorned with family paintings done by Joshua. One painting in particular showed baby Jake, baby Jermaine, and little Finn all playing together on the floor, as Margaret watched over them. Jermaine had kept these mementos carefully, touching them up whenever the paint faded, preserving the family history. As Jake looked at that painting, a wave of emotion washed over him. He realized how grateful he was to Jermaine for taking care of their parents' legacy. Over cups of hot cocoa, an old family comfort, Jake and Jermaine talked late into the night, reminiscing. They chuckled about childhood misadventures, like the time tiny Jake had stretched himself to steal pies from a high shelf, and Jermaine took the blame to protect him, or how Jermaine would draw doodles on sleeping Jake's belly when they were pups. But there was also a heartfelt conversation about the distance that had grown between them. Jermaine admitted that while he never resented Jake outright, he sometimes felt it was unfair that he was left with the heavy responsibility at home, while Jake traveled and had fun. Jake lowered his head, guilt shining in his big round eyes. He apologized softly for not being there, for not realizing sooner how lonely and burdened Jermaine might have felt. Finn, listening nearby, chimed in to praise Jermaine. Jake always told me you were the reliable one. We couldn't have become heroes without knowing you had our family's back. Jermaine smiled at that, tensions easing from his shoulders. He told Jake that despite the hardships, he was proud of him. Proud that Jake had become a hero and a father and made their parents' spirits proud. The two brothers embraced, a hug long overdue. In that warm hug, years of unspoken feelings were understood. Love, forgiveness, and mutual respect. Before leaving the next morning, Jake made Jermaine a promise that he wouldn't drift so far again. They agreed to visit one another more often, Jermaine to the treehouse for family gatherings, and Jake back to the old house to assist with maintenance and maybe take some of the old artifacts to safer places so Jermaine's load would lighten. Jermaine, ever dutiful, initially protested that he could handle it, but Jake insisted with loving determination. They parted not with a goodbye, but a "see you soon, brother," both hearts lighter than before. Finn and Jake walked away from their childhood home as dawn's light filtered through the trees. Jake felt a deep peace. He had reconnected an important piece of his life, healing an old worry that had quietly weighed on him. With Jermaine's forgiveness and love reaffirmed, Jake felt more whole. Back at home, life settled into a gentle rhythm. Adventures were fewer now, often simpler and taken at a relaxed pace. Finn occasionally went on solo quests or journeys of self-discovery, and Jake encouraged him, confident in Finn's growth. Jake himself sometimes sought out tranquility rather than excitement. In one quaint episode of his life, Jake decided to help an old farmer by acting as a literal brick in a crumbling wall of a barn. He had heard that the farmer's barn kept falling apart, and in a whimsical experiment, Jake stretched and contorted himself into the shape of a brick and lodged himself in the barn's wall to strengthen it, then chose to stay like that for several days. While in this humble form, Jake quietly observed the slow, rhythmic life of the countryside. He watched a small bunny make her burrow nearby, gathering food each day and returning to her family each night. Moved by this simple story unfolding before him, Jake began narrating it aloud in a soft, deep voice, with BMO recording as an eager audience. He turned the bunny's daily routine into a gentle epic, celebrating her courage in fetching a particularly large carrot and the tender affection when she returned to her tiny bunnies. Jake's narration was poetic and calming, revealing a reflective side of him that often remained beneath the surface of action. By the time he returned to his normal dog shape, the barn was fixed, and Jake had gained a newfound appreciation for the quiet heroism in everyday life. He shared this tale with Finn and their friends, remarking that every life, no matter how small, is full of meaning and adventure. As Jake grew older, these periods of contemplation became more frequent. He might spend a lazy afternoon floating on his back in the lake by the treehouse, watching clouds change shape, sometimes morphing himself to match their fluffy forms, and thinking about how much he'd experienced. In these serene moments, Jake felt the presence of all those he loved around him. Lady Rainicorn bringing him a cool drink, BMO playing gentle music, Finn sitting on the shore whittling a stick, or writing in a journal of his own adventures. Jake realized that he had found a beautiful balance in life: action and rest, laughter and thoughtful silence, youth and maturity. He often remembered the cosmic owl dream from years ago and smiled, knowing that one day his ultimate adventure would indeed come, but that he had no regrets in the life he lived. Surrounded by family, with peace in the land of Ooh largely secured, Jake the dog allowed himself to simply be, like a contented old hound dozing on a sunny porch. Little did he know that the greatest transition was on the horizon. Not a fearsome trial or a grand quest, but the gentle twilight of life and the mystery of what comes after. But when it arrived, Jake would face it as he did all things, with a warm heart and courage shaped by a lifetime of love. As the years went by, Jake encountered one more startling chapter of his personal story, a revelation about his origins that he never expected. One calm afternoon, a strange messenger arrived at the treehouse. A small cosmic being delivered a glowing message specifically for Jake. The message was from an entity far beyond Ooh, calling itself Warren Ampersand. Jake felt a jolt of recognition in his gut, though he couldn't place why. The message spoke directly into his mind. "Come to the stars, my son. Your destiny awaits." Finn and Lady Rainicorn were concerned. It felt ominous, but Jake was intensely curious. Memories of his father Joshua's tale about the shape-shifting creature that bit him long ago resurfaced in Jake's mind. Could this Warren ampersand be connected to that event? With a mix of apprehension and determination, Jake decided to journey to the far-off location indicated by the messenger. Traveling through a magical portal that opened in the sky, Jake found himself in a distant, glittering asteroid field, a place between worlds. There, hovering amidst cosmic mist, was Warren ampersand, a large alien creature with a long, snake-like body, shimmering blue skin, and multiple eyes that glinted with a peculiar mix of pride and desperation. Warren ampersand looked much like the monster from Joshua's old story. Jake's heart pounded as the creature addressed him. "My child, you've grown strong." In that moment, Jake understood. This being was the shapeshifter who had bitten Joshua, the one responsible for Jake's birth. Warren ampersand was, in a sense, Jake's biological father. Jake felt a swirl of emotions: confusion, curiosity, and a bit of anger on behalf of Joshua and Margaret. Carefully, he listened as Warren spun a tale. Warren claimed that he had been watching Jake's exploits from afar and that Jake had a grand cosmic purpose. He offered to train Jake in advanced shape-shifting powers to unlock abilities Jake had never dreamed of, like sprouting wings to fly through space or growing to the size of a mountain. Over the next few days, Jake cautiously engaged with Warren's training. Indeed, Jake found he could turn his yellow form into a larger, blue-hued version of himself, with multiple eyes and even wings, under Warren's guidance. It was strange. This form felt both frightening and intriguing, like discovering a hidden facet of himself. For a moment, Jake wondered if this was the destiny the Cosmic Owl's dream hinted at. Yet, something in Warren ampersand's demeanor felt off. There was a hollowness behind his proud words, and a trembling impatience in the way he urged Jake to push his powers harder and harder. Eventually, the truth came out. Warren ampersand was not nurturing Jake out of parental love. He needed Jake's powers to save himself. Warren, being ancient, suffered a curse that would kill him unless he siphoned the life energy of one of his offspring. In bringing Jake here and pushing him to transform, he intended to drain Jake's vital energy at the moment Jake reached his peak power. When Jake realized this betrayal, his heart ached. To have finally met the creature that gave him his powers, only to learn it planned to betray him, was painful. In that critical moment, Jake thought of Joshua and Margaret, the parents who raised him with love and never used him. He thought of Finn, Jermaine, Lady, and his children. They were his true family. Strengthened by that love, Jake refused to be a pawn in Warren's selfish game. A confrontation erupted among the asteroids. Warren ampersand lunged to ensnare Jake and absorb his essence. Jake, still in his enhanced blue form, dodged and fought back, stretching through the void. It was a bizarre, slow-motion battle in the silence of space. Jake used the very skills Warren taught him against the old creature, weaving around him and evading capture. Warren grew desperate and furious, unleashing cosmic bolts of energy. In a final burst of courage, Jake allowed Warren to come close, as if Jake were exhausted, then surprised the alien by shrinking rapidly back to his small dog shape, slipping free of Warren's coils at the last second. Warren overextended, and without Jake's energy to sustain him, the ancient being began to crumble under his own curse. With a sorrowful wail, Warren ampersand fell into the void and was no more. Jake floated there, watching the remnants of stardust fade. He felt a pang of pity for Warren, a being so consumed by survival that it never knew love or family the way Jake did. In that moment, Jake felt more grateful than ever for the life he'd been given. He now understood the true source of his stretchy powers, an alien heritage, but he also knew that those powers did not define him. What defined Jake was his heart and the choices he made. He quietly thanked his departed dad, Joshua for raising him right, and whispered into the cosmic emptiness, hoping Warren's spirit might find peace in another life where he could learn love instead of selfishness. Returning to Ooh, Jake was welcomed with tearful hugs. Finn and Lady, who had feared the worst as Jake disappeared into the portal, were overjoyed to have him back safe. Jake recounted the tale to them under the gentle afternoon light by the treehouse. Finn was outraged that Warren tried to hurt Jake, but Jake simply smiled wearily and said, "I handled it, and I'm okay." Lady Rainicorn curled around Jake comfortingly, and Jake felt the warmth of belonging wash over him. He showed them his new ability. At will, Jake could become that tall, blue, many-eyed shapeshifter. Finn gaped, and Lady watched in amazement as Jake then reverted to his familiar goofy self with a pop. Jake chuckled, saying he'd probably not use that form much, as he preferred how he normally looked, and Lady teasingly commented in Rainicorn tongue that she preferred his cute face with just 2 eyes. They all laughed, relief settling in. This chapter taught Jake that family is about love, not blood or cosmic DNA. His stretchy gifts might have come from Warren Ampersand, but everything that mattered, his kindness, his bravery, his sense of fun, came from the life Joshua and Margaret gave him and the choices he made thereafter. It was freeing in a way. Jake fully accepted every part of himself, even the strange alien aspect, without letting it define his destiny. He was happy just being Jake the dog, the person his friends and family adored. With this self-assurance, Jake carried on into his later years. He had acquired an almost sage-like air, though he wore it lightly, still humble and jolly. Sometimes younger adventurers in Ooh would seek him out for advice, drawn by the legend of the shape-shifting hero who'd lived many lifetimes' worth of adventures. Jake would sit on the grass with them, perhaps making his ears extra big and wiggly to amuse a nervous visitor, and share wisdom in his easygoing style, often through a funny anecdote or a simple metaphor. Jake never boasted of his feats. He focused on lessons of compassion and enjoying life's journey. Those who listened left with hearts a little lighter, as if they'd basked in sunshine. Jake's presence had become that sunshine for Ooh, reassuring, warm, and nurturing to all who knew him. And so, with his identity fully his own and his past reconciled, Jake spent his days peacefully. He played music with Marceline the Vampire Queen on occasion, her rocking guitar and his viola making oddly beautiful duets. He baked pies with Tree Trunks the elephant in the Candy Kingdom, swapping recipes and jokes. He had afternoon tea with Princess Bubblegum, who loved to hear news of his kids and often sought Jake's perspective on keeping the peace in Ooh. His answers were usually down to earth, sometimes literally suggesting a nap or a snack might solve high tensions, advice that surprisingly often worked to diffuse conflicts. In every corner of the land, Jake's influence was felt not as a commanding presence, but as a comforting one. His journey through life, full of wild adventures, deep relationships, trials, and growth, had molded him into a figure beloved by all. Yet, as Jake enjoyed these golden years, time was quietly moving forward, as it always does. Jake was not immortal. Like all living beings, he was slowly growing older. His fur had a touch of gray around the muzzle now, and he moved a tad slower, unless he really had to hustle, in which case a quick stretch would cheat the stiffness of age. He sometimes napped longer in the sun and preferred an easy stroll to a vigorous battle, and that was all right. Jake had given so much and continued to give through his presence and love. The land of Ooh was at peace, and Jake's loved ones were safe and happy. In his heart, Jake knew that the natural conclusion of his journey was drawing near. There was no fear in him, only a gentle curiosity and acceptance, much like he had felt in that rocket ship years ago, but now tempered with the fulfillment of a life well lived. Surrounded by those who treasured him, Jake prepared, in his own subtle way, for the next great adventure that even he had yet to fully understand. Though Jake's life had grown peaceful, one last great adventure awaited him and Finn before their story in Ooh drew to a close. Tensions had been brewing in the Candy Kingdom between Princess Bubblegum and an estranged relative of hers, Uncle Gumbald, which eventually escalated into a full-blown confrontation known as the Gum War. Ever the loyal friends, Finn and Jake stood by Princess Bubblegum's side as armies gathered on the field. Jake donned his old heroic armor, stretching it to fit, of course, and rallied other allies. Despite his age, Jake's spirit was as willing as ever. He comforted Princess Bubblegum before the battle, gently reminding her of how much good she'd done, and even humming a few bars of a familiar soothing song, a tune about time and memory that they all cherished. His calm bravery helped ease the worries of those around him. Marceline, the vampire queen, gave Jake's shoulder a thankful squeeze. Even in the face of war, Jake managed to keep hope alive in everyone's hearts. When the battle erupted, it was chaotic and intense, unlike anything since the fight with the Lich. Jake enlarged himself into a towering giant dog, acting as a shield to protect Candy citizens from harm. Finn charged forward to try and reason with the enemy, and in the fray, a much greater threat was unintentionally unleashed. The primordial entity, Golb, a being of chaos and destruction. In a flash, Golb's arrival turned the battlefield upside down. Reality itself warped under its power, and beloved friends were swallowed into a whirl of uncertainty. Jake found himself separated from Finn, pulled into a strange, mind-bending pocket dimension by Golb's power. Inside, Jake and a few others, Princess Bubblegum and Marceline among them, were fused into a monstrous shape by Golb's chaotic magic, rendering them unable to control their own bodies. It was a terrifying moment. For Jake, it was as if he were trapped in a bad dream, unable to move freely for the first time in ages. But even amidst this terror, the bonds of love and friendship forged over a lifetime shone through. Outside, Finn and others fought, not with weapons, but with music and emotion to bring their friends back. A soft song began to echo through the distorted space. It was BMO, their little robot friend, singing a heartfelt song called Time Adventure, a song about how the love shared in each moment lasts forever, echoing through time and space. The melody was gentle and true, and it resonated deeply with Jake's soul. Within the monster he had been merged into, Jake's consciousness stirred. He remembered every beautiful moment, listening to Joshua's stories by the fire, adventuring with Finn across mountains, holding his newborn pups, laughing with Lady Rainicorn in the clouds. Those memories glowed warm and bright, pushing back the darkness of Golb's chaos. Jake found himself humming along inside, lending his spirit to the song. Marceline's voice joined the harmony, then Princess Bubblegum's. That collective power of friendship and love began to undo Golb's magic. In a brilliant burst, the fused monster separated back into its individuals. Jake was free. As the dust settled, Golb was neutralized and vanished from OOO, taking with it the last echoes of strife. The war ended not with victory by force, but with the triumph of understanding and unity. Finn rushed to Jake the moment they were reunited. They embraced tightly, tears of relief in their eyes. "You okay, Jake?" Finn asked, his voice trembling with concern. Jake, catching his breath, smiled and said softly, "I am now, buddy. Thanks to you, to all of you." Around them, friends and former foes alike were hugging, crying and laughing, realizing they had averted disaster together. In the aftermath, Ooh entered a true age of peace. The Candy Kingdom and its rivals reconciled, and Princess Bubblegum ensured that old grudges were mended with compassion. Finn and Jake, their final great battle behind them, returned home as heroes honored not for conquest, but for their hearts. A grand celebratory picnic was held by a lake under a perfect blue sky. Jake lounged on a checkered blanket, Lady Rainicorn resting her head against him, while Finn excitedly recounted parts of the battle to curious candy kids. Of course, highlighting how Jake turned into a giant to save everyone. Jake simply listened with a serene smile, the breeze ruffling his fur, feeling contentment wash over him. Marceline played a gentle tune on her guitar, and Jake found himself humming that time adventure song again, this time happily and at peace. The world was safe, their loved ones were all around, and every moment indeed would live on in their memories. After that day, Jake knew deep down that his role as the constant adventurer was coming to a natural end. He had no regrets. He had given his all to protect the land and the people he loved. In the quiet mornings that followed, Jake would wake up in the treehouse, stretch and yawn, and feel the sunlight on his face with a profound sense of completion. Finn was growing into an adult who could handle whatever came next, and Jake's beloved family was thriving. Jake began to spend more time on simple pleasures. Slow walks with Lady Rainicorn through the Candy Kingdom gardens, long chats with BMO about silly fantasies, and teaching his granddaughter Bronwyn new tricks with her shape-shifting abilities. She had inherited a spark of his magic, and Jake gently guided her on how to use it for fun and good. Each day was like a sweet song. Nothing urgent, just the soft melody of an earned rest. In the evenings, Finn and Jake would still sit atop the treehouse as they had done for years, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of pink and orange. One evening, as they sat quietly, Finn noticed Jake's gaze was distant, yet peaceful. Finn nudged him. "What you thinking about, Jake?" Jake smiled and replied, "Oh, just how awesome all of this has been. You and me, buddy. We did so many cool things, helped so many people." Finn leaned against Jake, sensing the warmth and a hint of melancholy in his brother's tone. "It's been a pretty great adventure, huh?" Finn whispered. Jake wrapped an arm around Finn's shoulders, pulling him close. "The greatest," Jake murmured. He told Finn how proud he was of him, how Finn had grown from a little boy in a onesie to a true hero whose kindness could change the world. Finn's eyes glistened, and he told Jake he couldn't have done any of it without him. They stayed up late that night, talking softly about funny past escapades, teasing each other gently, and sometimes sitting in comfortable silence. At one point, Finn dozed off and Jake simply watched the stars, his paw resting on Finn's back like a protective blanket, as he had done when Finn was a baby. Jake's heart was full, and he felt ready for whatever was to come, knowing Finn and all his loved ones would be okay, even if he wasn't by their side every moment. Unbeknownst to Finn, that night Jake had a subtle sense, a tug from the universe, perhaps from the cosmic owl in his dreams once again, that his time in the land of the living was nearing its gentle conclusion. And so Jake closed his eyes under that starry sky, Finn sleeping soundly beside him, and allowed himself to drift into a deep, peaceful sleep, filled with dreams of all the beautiful times he had lived. Jake passed away as gently as a leaf falling in autumn. In the quiet hours of that night, with Finn sleeping by his side under the stars, Jake's breathing grew soft and slower until, at last, it ceased. There was no pain, no fear, only a peaceful stillness and a faint smile resting on Jake's face, as if he were enjoying a sweet dream. When the morning sun peeked over the horizon, Finn stirred awake and immediately sensed the heaviness in the air. He found Jake still beside him, looking for all the world as if he might wake any minute to yawn and stretch. But Finn knew. With trembling hands, he gently shook Jake's shoulder, voice cracking, "Jake, hey, Jake!" There was no response. Jake's journey in the land of Ooh had come to its end. Finn felt a surge of grief unlike any he had known. Tears welled in his eyes as he wrapped his arms around Jake's still form. It felt unreal that his lifelong companion, his brother in every way that mattered, was gone. Yet even in this heartbreaking moment, there was a strange tranquility in Jake's expression. Finn could almost imagine that Jake had chosen this moment, beneath their beloved tree and the open sky, to slip away peacefully. Through his sobs, Finn managed to whisper, "Thank you for everything, Jake. I love you." The morning light grew brighter, and it seemed to Finn as if the sun itself was offering a gentle embrace in Jake's absence. News of Jake's passing spread gently through their circle of friends and family. That day, the treehouse became a gathering place for all who loved him. Lady Rainicorn arrived first, tears streaming down her long rainbow body, her usually vibrant colors muted with sorrow. She rested her head against Jake's and spoke to him in soft Rainicorn language, a final loving goodbye known only to the two of them. Finn held Lady as she quivered with grief, and in that moment, their family bond felt stronger than ever, each supporting the other. Jermaine came from the old house, solemn and strong, and placed a paw on Jake's forehead in a silent prayer. Princess Bubblegum, Marceline, BMO, Lumpy Space Princess, Tree Trunks, and so many others who Jake had touched over the years also came to pay their respects. Even Ice King, now Simon again, cured of his madness, arrived, hat in hand, to mourn the friendly dog who'd once played along with his silly schemes just to keep him company. Everyone shared hugs, tears, and memories. They decided to hold a simple memorial at sunset near the tree fort, which had been Jake's home and the site of so many joyful times. Under the golden light of dusk, they laid Jake to rest beneath his favorite tree, the very spot where he and Finn often relaxed after adventures. Princess Bubblegum, with Finn's input, had grown a beautiful small tree sapling there, using her candy science to make it strong and healthy, a living marker for Jake's resting place. One by one, those gathered spoke or expressed what Jake meant to them. Marceline plucked a gentle tune on her guitar, singing a lullaby version of Bacon Pancakes, which made everyone smile through their tears, remembering Jake flipping pancakes in the mornings. BMO, holding one of Jake's old rolled-up socks like a microphone, told the story of Jake the Brick, recounting Jake's narrated tale of the little bunny. Even those who hadn't heard it before were moved, understanding how Jake found beauty in small things. Jermaine shared a childhood memory of how Jake would sneak into his bed during thunderstorms, stretching around him like a warm blanket to keep him calm, something Jermaine had never admitted until now, and it drew soft laughter from the crowd. Lady Rainicorn's turn came, and though not everyone understood her Rainicorn speech, the emotion in her voice was unmistakable. Through a translation device Princess Bubblegum provided, Lady's words echoed. She spoke of Jake's unfailing kindness, his humor, and how he made her life feel like a dream full of color and love. She thanked Finn and all Jake's friends for being his family, and promised that Jake's legacy would live on through their children and beyond. Finally, Finn stepped forward, eyes red but demeanor gentle. He wore Jake's old adjustable viola sling across his chest. Jake had left his beloved viola to Finn, a symbol of the music and harmony he brought into life. Finn began to speak, voice wavering at first. Jake was my brother, my best friend, my hero. He recounted how Jake had been with him through everything, teaching him to be brave and to laugh even when things were hard. Jake always knew how to make me feel better, Finn said, wiping a tear, and he always made me feel safe. I'm going to miss his jokes, his songs, just him being there. But I know Jake wouldn't want us to be sad forever. He'd want us to smile, to enjoy every moment, and to take care of each other. Finn took a shaky breath, then managed a small smile. Jake told me once that every moment we share with someone we love sticks around forever, like an echo. So I think he's still here with us in all of those echoes. As Finn finished, a gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the new tree above Jake's grave, and for a second, many could swear it sounded like a quiet whisper or a sigh of contentment. They ended the memorial by planting some of Jake's favorite things around the tree. Finn placed a well-worn cookbook open to the bacon pancakes recipe. Lady laid down a soft blanket patterned with rainicorn colors, and BMO set a small holo projector to display images of Jake through the years. Jake playing the viola, Jake hugging all 5 of his pups at once, Jake with a huge stack of spaghetti, and Jake winking at the camera with Finn laughing in the background. It was a celebration of life as much as a goodbye. In the days and weeks that followed, Finn had to adjust to life without Jake's physical presence. It was the hardest thing he'd ever done. Sometimes he'd wake up expecting to smell Jake's breakfast cooking or to hear him humming in the next room, and his heart would ache anew when he remembered. Yet, true to his word, Jake seemed to linger in spirit. Whenever Finn felt lonely, something would happen. A ladybug would land on his hand, or he'd catch a whiff of vanilla, Jake's favorite scent, in the breeze out of nowhere. That made him think of Jake and smile. Finn took these as gentle signs that Jake was still watching over him somehow. With time, Finn's tears gave way more often to laughter as he recounted Jake's antics to others. He took on the role of Uncle Finn to Jake's grandchildren, telling them grand tales of their grandpa Jake's heroism and hilarity. Nothing could replace Jake, but Finn honored him by living as fully and kindly as Jake had taught him. Years rolled onward. Finn traveled the world, even voyaging across the ocean to discover new things, adventures that Jake's encouragement had emboldened him to pursue. He grew from a young man into a seasoned hero, the memory of Jake always his guiding star. Jake's children visited often, and Lady Rainicorn remained a dear friend and confidant to Finn. The treehouse continued to be a home filled with laughter, Bronwyn and other young ones sometimes staying over, with Finn telling stories under Jake's tree until the little ones fell asleep in a pile of pillows and blankets. Though Jake's mortal chapter had closed, his story was not truly over. It lived on in those who loved him, and in the very fabric of Ooh. And as every creature in Ooh knows, when a being full of love departs the mortal plane, their journey isn't ended. It's simply beginning anew on another plane of existence. Jake's soul moved on to the next adventure, and in time, even that adventure would reunite him with those he cherished most. The echoes of his laughter, bravery, and love continued to ring through Ooh like the last notes of a beautiful song, lingering in the air, reassuring and true. And for Finn, each day was lived with the promise that someday, somewhere, he and Jake would meet again for another adventure, a promise that fate and the cosmos fully intended to keep. Many decades later, long after Jake's peaceful passing, the day came when Finn's mortal life too reached its end. By now, Finn was an old man, hair silver, body marked with the scars and honors of a lifetime of heroism. He had lived fully, carrying Jake's memory with him through every challenge and triumph. On Finn's final day in Ooh, he felt not fear, but a sense of quiet anticipation. He had seen so much, and though he was surrounded by loved ones, a part of his heart yearned for someone who had gone on ahead. With a contented sigh, Finn closed his eyes for the last time in the land of Ooh, and opened them to find himself in a new and mysterious realm. Finn awoke in what appeared to be a dimly lit marble hallway that stretched infinitely in both directions. He felt young again, in spirit and body, as if restored to his adventurous prime. At first, he was disoriented, but then realization dawned. He had passed into the afterlife, the land of the dead. Immediately, Finn's thoughts went to Jake. A hopeful excitement stirred in his chest. Somewhere in this vast cosmic afterworld, his best friend was out there. Finn remembered their promise of another adventure together, and so without hesitation, he began to move, calling out, "Jake! Jake! I'm here!" His voice echoed, but no answer yet returned. The afterlife was not a single place, but many. Finn journeyed through surreal landscapes, floating islands under lavender skies, rivers of memory flowing through mist, and stairways of stars connecting different dead worlds, as the realms of the dead were called. He soon learned that souls in this afterlife were sorted by the goodness and growth of their spirit, each ascending to higher dead worlds as they achieved greater enlightenment and peace. Jake, with his lifetime of love and virtue, had ascended to the 50th dead world, the highest and most blissful of all, a kind of heavenly nirvana. Finn's own soul had work to do to reach that level, but nothing could stop his determination to find Jake. Finn faced a series of trials in these spiritual realms, tests not of brawn, but of heart. He confronted echoes of his past. At one point, meeting an apparition of his younger self, filled with the rage and grief he once harbored, and calming that younger Finn with patience and forgiveness. In another trial, he encountered a bureaucratic judge of souls, Death's son known as New Death, who tried to convince Finn to forget his life and move on alone. But Finn steadfastly refused to let go of Jake. He proclaimed that their bond was eternal and that no force, not even death, could keep them apart. Finn's quest was not solitary for long. Along the way, he found unexpected allies. The spirit of Mr. Fox, an old acquaintance from Oo, guided him through a maze-like dead world library, and the cosmic entity Prismo, a wish-granting friend from Finn's past, subtly nudged fate to open the right doors for Finn's journey. Each step brought him closer to Jake, and Finn could sometimes sense Jake's presence like a warm light glowing in the distance. At last, Finn reached the gateway of the 50th dead world. Stepping through was like entering a boundless summer afternoon where the air itself hummed with happiness. And there, reclining on a cosmic picnic blanket amidst an endless field of soft grass and sunlight, was Jake. But Jake looked different. He was in the form of a great blue shapeshifter, with multiple eyes and a serene aura, the form he had learned to assume in his final years. In this perfect realm, Jake had adopted his truest form, one that reflected his enlightened spirit. Yet, when Finn called out, "Jake!" the blue figure instantly morphed back into the familiar yellow dog with whom Finn had shared a lifetime. Jake's two eyes widened in disbelief and then overwhelming joy. "Finn? Is that really you?" Jake exclaimed, springing up. In a heartbeat, Finn ran across the emerald grass and Jake bounded toward him. They collided in a tight, tearful embrace, Finn laughing and sobbing with relief, Jake wagging his tail so hard it seemed it might shake him apart. The hug went on, as if neither ever wanted to let go again. "I missed you, buddy," Jake whispered, resting his chin on Finn's shoulder. "I missed you so much," Finn choked out, burying his face in Jake's fur. In that reunion, any pain or loneliness both had felt vanished like morning dew. It was as though no time had passed between them at all. For a while, Finn and Jake simply enjoyed the perfection of the 50th dead world together. Jake introduced Finn to the wonders of this heavenly place. They floated among singing clouds and drank a kind of ethereal tea that tasted like every good memory. Jake showed Finn a cozy cabin he had crafted with his imagination, where he spent time napping and reflecting. It had everything he loved: an ever-full plate of bacon pancakes, a shelf of comic books, and a window overlooking a golden lake where, he noted with a wink, the reflection always showed you at your best. Finn could see why Jake was so content here. Jake glowed with a tranquil happiness. Though now that Finn had arrived, Jake's bliss was truly complete. However, the reunion also brought a revelation. Finn's arrival in the 50th Dead World without naturally ascending meant that something was amiss. Indeed, the new Death, who had tried to bar Finn's way, was upset by Finn's unorthodox journey and sought to undo it. A great disturbance shook the foundations of the Dead Worlds. New Death aimed to shatter the balance of life and death, which would have scattered souls into chaos. Finn realized that if they did nothing, they could be separated again in the turmoil. Without hesitation, Jake agreed to help Finn set things right. Though Jake had earned his rest, his heroic heart could not ignore the call to adventure, especially not with Finn by his side once more. And so, for one final time, Finn and Jake embarked on an adventure together, this time across the realms of the dead. They left the comfort of the 50th Dead World hand in hand, diving back into the lower planes to confront new death and restore order. The trials they faced were surreal and daunting. New Death unleashed spectral monsters forged from the regrets and sorrows of souls. In one battle, Jake and Finn found themselves fighting a towering apparition composed of all their past fears. Every time Finn swung his sword, doubts about decisions he'd made in life whispered at him. Every time Jake stretched to strike, memories of moments he couldn't change tugged at him. But together they overcame these manifestations by reminding each other of the love and good that defined their lives. Jake shouted, "Remember the hugs, dude!" And Finn, laughing, pierced through the illusion by recalling the countless hugs and acts of kindness that had guided them. The dark apparition shattered into stardust, unable to withstand their positivity. Finally, they confronted New Death himself, a skeletal being with a cold crown. He threatened to send Finn to oblivion and force Jake back to the living world, as an echo, a ghost, to separate them. Facing this dire ultimatum, Finn and Jake stood resolute, side by side. Finn declared that he accepted his own death and would take oblivion if it meant not hurting the cosmic order. But he pleaded that Jake and all souls deserved peace. Jake, in turn, spoke up with an authority he had never before used. He told New Death that love was the very fabric of existence, and to try to sever bonds like theirs was against the fundamental truth of the universe. As the two spoke, a light began to emanate around them. The same warm, golden light that had bound them throughout life. This light took shape, manifesting as the spirit of the original Death, the one Finn and Jake had met long ago, awakened by their unwavering friendship. The original Death, with a booming yet oddly amused voice, chastised his wayward heir and set the cosmic balance right. New Death was transformed, not destroyed but changed, taking on a new role as life rather than death, a guardian of beginnings instead of endings. Peace returned to the dead worlds, and the fractures in the realms healed. With the cosmic order restored, Finn and Jake had a choice to make. The old Death, grateful to them, offered a gentle invitation. Finn, having proven his spirit, could now remain in the 50th Dead World with Jake indefinitely, free from all troubles. It was a paradise beyond imagination, but Finn and Jake exchanged a thoughtful glance. They both knew that their journey wasn't truly over. In life, they had always sought the next horizon, the next discovery. And though the 50th Dead World was beautiful, the real beauty of their adventures had always been in growing and changing together. So, side by side, Finn and Jake approached the shimmering door of new life, a portal through which souls could choose to be reborn or move on to a new existence. Finn reached out and took Jake's paw firmly in his hand. Neither had any fear or hesitation. Finn smiled. One more adventure together? Jake's eyes sparkled with the same excitement he had the day they first set out from the treehouse so many years ago. Together again, he agreed warmly. Hand in hand, they stepped through the door. A brilliant light surrounded them, filled with the laughter of friends and the songs of the universe. In that transcendent moment, Finn and Jake's souls were like twin comets, traveling side by side, venturing into the unknown. Whether they would be reborn in a new world or become guardians watching over Ooh, or something beyond anyone's understanding, it didn't matter. What mattered is that they were together, just as they had always been and always would be. Thus, even in death, the story of Finn and Jake found a new beginning. Their bond, forged in the fires of countless adventures and cooled in the gentle waters of love and time, proved unbreakable. In the land of Ooh, beneath Jake's memorial tree, sometimes people say you can hear echoes of joyous laughter on quiet nights. Some like to think it's the laughter of Finn and Jake, off on another grand quest in some other reality or future, their spirits intertwined and happy. And perhaps it is, for theirs is a friendship that transcended lifetimes, a shining example of love that even the cosmos bowed to. Finn the human and Jake the dog, reunited in the end, and off to explore whatever lies beyond, side by side, forever. The story of Jake the dog did not end with his departure from Ooh, or even with his cosmic reunion with Finn. It continued to echo and inspire in the world he left behind, and even in worlds beyond. In the land of Ooh, Jake's children and grandchildren carried forward his spirit. His granddaughter Bronwyn, inheriting both her father's responsible nature and a touch of Jake's playfulness, grew into a brave adventurer herself. Under the guidance of Uncle Finn and others, Bronwyn and the next generation navigated their own quests, always remembering the gentle wisdom Jake had instilled in the family. The Candy Kingdom and other regions often told the legend of Finn and Jake to young ones at bedtime, how a human boy and a magical dog saved the world with friendship and smiles. The tree fort, where Finn and Jake had lived, became a cherished historical spot, and the tree that grew from Jake's resting place stood strong and tall, leaves ever rustling as if whispering Jake's favorite jokes to the wind. Far into the future, 1,000 years hence, new heroes would roam a changed Ooh. An odd young fellow named Shermie, and a small pup-like creature named Beth, who bore a striking resemblance to a descendant of Jake's species, would discover artifacts of the past, like the sword Finn once wielded, and feel the tug of history and heroism guiding them. In Beth's stretchy limbs and courageous heart, one could see a glimmer of Jake's legacy carried through the ages. It's as if the universe made sure that the essence of Jake, his loyalty, his courage, his joy, would always find a way to manifest in the world when needed. Jake's influence wasn't limited to his own universe either. Across the multiverse, in distant realities, the idea of Jake took on new forms. In one such realm, imagined first in the funny fan fiction stories of the Ice King and later made real through magic, there lived a gender-swapped version of Finn and Jake's duo. A brave girl named Fiona and her feline friend, Cake the cat. Cake, with her loaf-shaped body and stretchy powers, was a clear mirror of Jake, independent, sassy, yet fiercely loving to her friend, Fiona. The adventures of Fiona and Cake, though unique, carried the unmistakable stamp of Finn and Jake's bond, as if to show that across all realities, the friendship of a heroic youngster and a shape-shifting companion was a universal force for good. In fact, during some extraordinary cross-universe travels, Fiona and Cake themselves once glimpsed Finn and Jake on a magical screen. An older Finn and an older Jake exploring a dungeon, still together, still living their story. It was just a cameo, a brief sight, but it filled Fiona and Cake with hope and familiarity, as though seeing old friends. In another alternate timeline, one where events in Ooh unfolded differently, an elder Finn who had lost much, still kept Jake's spirit alive in his heart. A reminder that in every iteration of reality, Jake's presence made a difference. These ripples of Jake's story show how deeply he touched the fabric of existence. His life was like a stone tossed into a pond, creating rings that expanded outward infinitely. The love he gave, the lessons he imparted, and the joy he spread all continued to circulate. To those who never met him, Jake became something of a myth, the quintessential friend and guardian, a symbol of comfort in hard times. When a new adventurer befriends a magical creature, or when someone acts with kindness and humor in the face of danger, people often say, "That's the spirit of Jake the dog at work." And so, as all tales must, the whimsical saga of Jake the dog comes to a gentle close, not with an end, but with a transformation into legend, memory, and cosmic continuation. From a tiny pup born of magic to a wise soul journeying among the stars, Jake's life covered every color of the rainbow. He experienced the innocence of youth, the camaraderie of adventure, the warmth of love, the growth from challenges, the fulfillment of parenthood, and ultimately the peace of a life well lived. Through every chapter, Jake remained true to what he was at heart, a beacon of warmth, laughter, and love. Jake's relationships were the treasure of his journey. He was a devoted brother to Finn, guiding him, learning from him, and walking beside him through every storm and sunbeam. He was a loving partner to Lady Rainicorn, sharing a bond that bridged languages and species, creating a beautiful family together. He was a caring sibling to Jermaine, eventually understanding and appreciating the brother who upheld their family's legacy. He was a doting father and grandfather, playful, protective, and proud, nurturing new lives with the same gentle care Joshua and Margaret had shown him. And indeed, Jake was a friend to all, from BMO to Princess Bubblegum to Marceline and beyond. Each friendship marked by genuine affection and Jake's trademark easygoing charm. Major themes colored Jake's story like an artist's palette. Maturity. Jake grew from a carefree trickster into a responsible, wise figure, demonstrating that growing up doesn't mean losing one's joy. It means deepening it and sharing it more broadly. Family. For Jake, family was everything, both the one he was born into and the one he built. He proved that family is defined by love and commitment rather than mere blood. Change. Jake's very being was about change. He could literally change shape at will, and he embraced the changes life brought, new roles, new challenges, and even the final transition of life with grace and acceptance. And of course, adventure. Jake reveled in the thrill of the unknown, the call to help others, and the simple fun of exploring the world with his best friend. Even in the quiet end of days, he saw life itself as the grandest adventure of all. Now, the land of Ooh settles into a tranquil night. The stars above twinkle like friendly eyes. Perhaps somewhere up there, two stars, shining a bit brighter and closer together than the rest, are Finn and Jake on their next big quest through the cosmos. And down here in Oh, the gentle night breeze through the leaves of Jake's tree almost sounds like soft humming. Could it be Jake's spirit, humming a familiar lullaby to soothe those he left behind? One wouldn't be surprised. Jake the dog's tale is one of friendship enduring every trial, of laughter lighting the darkest moments, and of love weaving lives together across time and space. It's a story that invites us to smile even as we wipe away a tear, to feel comfort in the knowledge that bonds as strong as Finn and Jake's truly last forever. As you drift off to sleep, let your mind wander through the candy-colored hills and starry skies of Ooh, where somewhere a wise old dog might be lounging on a cloud, strumming a viola and waiting for his next dear friend to join him. Feel the warmth of his presence, the reassurance that everything changes, yet somehow everything good remains. In the morning, the sun will rise on a world still full of magic and hope, just as Jake would have wanted. For now, under the blanket of night, you can rest with a heart full of the gentle, whimsical, and emotionally rich journey that was the life of Jake the dog, a true hero of adventure and of love, whose story will lull the realms to peace forever after. Sweet dreams, and remember, the fun will never end, for Jake's song lives on in every heart that remembers him.